Avowed is an action role-playing game developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Xbox Games Studios. Set in the high fantasy world of Aora, which was first introduced in the Pillars of Eternity, Avowed takes a new approach to storytelling, combat, and exploration. Unlike its isometric predecessors, Avowed is a first-person or third-person RPG drawing comparisons to the Elder Scrolls while maintaining the rich lore and narrative depth Obsidian is known for. Unlike the more structured and politically driven areas seen in Pillars of Eternity, the Living Lands are unpredictable, home to bizarre creatures, lost civilizations, and a deep magical presence. Obsidian has promised a world that reacts to your choices, making every decision carry weight, whether you align with different factions, interact with key NPCs, or explore hidden corners of the land.
Ambassador Volshin Hilgar at your service. His Majesty names you our Imperial Envoy, an extension of the throne's authority. You've seen how wild the Living Lands has become, both in nature and in politics. The source of the Blight eludes us still. Just be careful. The Empire doesn't have many friends on these shores. And the Emperor would never forgive me if anything happened to you. But let's not dwell on unpleasant matters. The Living Lands is fractured. Sometimes I think the island has a mind of its own. There is no easy path from here, for you or any of us. So you will decide. The choice is yours, as will be the consequences. History waits for you, Envoy. Go meet it.
Customization is at the heart of Avowed. Players will create their own character, choosing from a couple of different races and classes, much like the Pillars of Eternity, but a little bit more limited in scope. The game does offer RPG mechanics, allowing players to tailor their character to the preferred playstyle, whether that's wielding a massive two-handed sword, mastering powerful spells, or taking a stealthy roguelike approach. One of the most exciting aspects of Avowed is its expansive world design. The Living Lands are filled with hidden caves, abandoned ruins, and towering mountains. Players are encouraged to explore every nook and cranny, as treasures, lore, and secret side quests are waiting to be uncovered. Traversal is designed to be dynamic, with some climbing, swimming, and even magical teleportation playing a role. Some areas may be locked behind a puzzle, or require a special ability to gain access, making exploration feel rewarding and immersive. Unlike the Elder Scrolls series, which has been compared most to Avowed, where players explore a massive and continuous open world, Avowed takes an open-zoned approach, where players can venture into distinct expansive regions, each filled with secret side quests and environmental storytelling. What is an RPG without great loot? Avowed features a deep looting system, rewarding exploration and combat with powerful gear. Players can find weapons, armor, magical artifacts, and rare enchanted items hidden throughout the world. Loot rarity ranges from common to legendary artifacts with unique abilities. Some weapons may carry elemental enchantments, like a flaming sword that deals extra fire damage, or an ice-infused bow that slows enemy on impact. One of the coolest weapons I found, personally, was a mace that glowed purple, that upon defeating an enemy with it would cause essentially a black hole to spawn and pull all enemies into it, giving you more opportunities to deal damage. Loot and exploration pretty much go hand in hand. And while completing quests and exploring the living lands, you're always rewarded with something almost everywhere you go. It may not be something groundbreaking every single time. It may just be a weapon that you already have that you can break down or sell at a shop for money. It may also be upgrade materials or money itself. Regardless, you're always picking something up in Avowed, and it's always something that can be used. Now, with regards to leveling up your loot and your gear that you do this at a camp. Now, these camps can be found on multiple places across each zone, and that is where you're going to do it. You have a chest or an area in your camp that you walk up to and select. And at first, this was a little bit complicated for me. It took me a little bit to get used to it. But you can also craft the elements that you need as well, because when it comes to upgrading your weapons, they come at a tier cost. And to progress them through each level that they need to be in order to do the damage that they need to do in the area that you're in, you have to find materials. Now, the weapons and gear that you're really going to want to look for, they all have a gold outline and they're looked at as special. These can be leveled up all the way from common to legendary. Now, if you pick up a common weapon, you can upgrade it all the way to superior, but it's not going to go past that. So they're at kind of a lock. And these weapons are also more common than you would think they are. They don't seem that way at first, but the more you play, the more quests you do, the more gear that you get as a reward or that you find, you're going to find multiple swords, multiple guns, multiple of anything essentially that you're looking for. And when you have enough of the upgrade materials, you can also then upgrade the upgrade materials to better materials that you can then use to upgrade your gear and your weapons. Instead of predefined classes like Warrior or Mage, Avowed features multiple skill trees which allow you to invest points into different areas as you level up. The major skill categories are melee combat with two-handed mastery, shield techniques, and berserker rage, ranged combat, and that includes precision shooting, rapid reloads, and stealth sniping, magic and spellcasting, which has elemental magic, illusion magic, and necromancy and summoning, stealth and roguish abilities, backstab, sneak, lockpicking and traps, evasion and mobility. And then, of course, you can also level up speech and diplomacy, which will then give you the edge with persuasion, intimidation, or deception. As you level up, you earn skill points, and you can put them in these trees, and you can specialize deeply in one area or create a hybrid character. Some abilities unlock new dialogue options or alternative solutions in quests. I would recommend really going in on one of these skill trees. I played with skill points spread across a variety of different trees, and while I was decent at many things, my character really wasn't great at anything. So whenever I do a new game, or whenever they introduce New Game Plus so that you can go back through and earn more skill points, I'll probably just end up focusing in on one skill tree 100%. Now, you do have an attribute system. Now, you receive as you level up, of course, and get skill points. You get these attribute points as well. But once you hit a point leveling up, I believe it's 10 or 12, you do not receive any more attributes that are with every single level up. Meaning that if you, again, spread those points across a wide ranging variety of them, you're going to be okay at many things, but not really great at anything. So I would focus on maybe 3 of them and go all in on those 3 and level them up as high as possible. Now, one thing that it did confuse me a little bit is the different abilities that are in the skill trees feel like they're mixed in with the wrong category, such as melee combat and ranged combat as an example. In ranged combat, there is a skill that each time you level it up, it increases the damage that one-handed weapons do. So swords, axes, maces. For some reason, that is in the ranged category. I don't know if maybe they didn't come up with enough perks for each skill tree and then just kind of threw in the leftover ones in there, hoping no one would notice, but it was a bit weird for me. One of the biggest draws of Avowed is its dynamic combat system. If you're a fan of Skyrim, this will feel familiar, but with Obsidian, they are putting their own twist on it. The game allows for fluid combat, whether you prefer melee weapons, archery, guns, or spellcasting. Dual-wielding weapons and magic is a big focus, too. You can have a sword in one hand and a spell in the other, allowing for creative combinations in battle. Shields, bows, and even powerful two-handed weapons can also make an appearance. Combat in Avowed is designed to be strategic. You'll need to read enemy movements, block or parry at the right time, and exploit weaknesses. Some enemies may be resistant to certain types of magic, but weak to physical attacks, while others might require dodging and fast footwork to be taken down. Magic is a core aspect of Avowed's combat. Players can use elemental spells like fire, ice, and lightning, but also delve into more advanced arcane art styles such as necromancy or illusion. The game features a spellcrafting system allowing players to combine different magical effects for devastating results. Staggering and status effects also play a role in combat. Well-timed hits can stagger foes and open them up for critical attacks. Poison weapons can weaken enemies over time, and enchanted gear may grant powerful buffs in battle. Defense is just important as offense, and shields allow players to block incoming attacks, reduce damage taken. Perfectly timed blocks can lead to ripostes, punishing enemies with counterattacks. Dodging and rolling will help avoid devastating blows and ensure that combat remains fluid and reactive. For those who prefer the ranged approach, archery offers precise high damage attacks. Combining ranged combat and stealth can allow players to eliminate enemy threats before they are even noticed. And as far as combat is concerned, I feel like I've just barely scratched the surface. It has such depth that it's going to take some time to really dissect all the different types of combinations between spells, weapons, and armor and perks that you can use to really build out a character. Now, one of the more controversial things when it comes to Avowed is its companions. Over the game, you recruit 4 companions, and love them or hate them, they're there with you almost all the time. Going back to your camp where you can upgrade your materials or pass the time by sleeping, you're going to talk to them there and they're going to let you in essentially on their life, what they're doing. And if you don't pay attention to the things that they have to say to you, specifically when it comes to the story or the quest that you're on, they'll give commentary and talk about it and sometimes provide insight into things that you might not get otherwise, that if you skipped it, some things might not make much sense. They don't all have companion quests like you would expect from a typical Obsidian game. The first character that you get as a companion is Kai, and he is the only one that you really have to go out of your way to do his companion quest. All of the other companion quests are weaved into the main story. So when you talk to, let's say, Marius, the second character that you get as a companion, he tells you about some things that happened to him in his past, and then he basically says, I really just don't want to talk about it anymore. And you assume, okay, great, we're going to deal with that in another quest that is a companion quest. And you do, but that quest is part of the main story towards the end of the game. Now, there are some things when it comes to companions that, of course, doesn't make sense compared to other games. There's a companion that once you get a certain point in the story, gets an opportunity to leave and go to somebody else and kind of be their companion. And even if you tell that person, yeah, you should go, eventually at the end of the conversation, they don't. So it doesn't really matter what you say to them at that time. You're going to continue with them regardless of however that conversation goes. And I know that in other RPGs like Baldur's Gate, you can get rid of characters left and right and they'll be gone forever. But that's not what Obsidian was trying to do with Avowed. Now, Avowed would not be complete without the choice and consequence systems that have been built into so many other Obsidian games. The way that it is implemented here is going to disappoint a lot of people looking for a game as open as the previous titles, or again, to compare to Baldur's Gate 3. There are some choices that you can make that aren't really going to change anything. You're not going to be given the opportunity to mold certain situations in a way that you might want to. But in many ways, there are plenty of choices that you make that will affect the end of the game or the opportunity in dialogue that is given to you towards the end of the game. As a example, when you go and you rest at a camp, you have an interaction with a character that is in a spirit world. And depending on the answers to the questions that this character is asking you, that is going to determine the dialogue options that are available to you at the end of the game. And again, it goes without being said, even though I have to say it, if you jump through or rush through these dialogue sequences, when you make it to the end, the choices that you're presented with either aren't going to be as meaningful to you or you're not going to understand the depth of how you got there, obviously because you're not paying attention. Avowed successfully blends Obsidian's signature storytelling with modern RPG mechanics, with its deep lore, engaging combat, while carving out its own identity in the RPG genre. It is a must-play for fans of Obsidian or just RPGs in general, and with being available on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for console and PC, the risk is null and void, and it's a definite must-play.